You're listening to Crashes, Claims, and Clarity, hosted by Darrell Burrow, a Georgia-based personal injury attorney with over 30 years of experience and founder of Burrow and Associates. With a background in both legal strategy and compassionate client care, Darrell has helped over 10,000 individuals and families navigate life after injury. Guided by his Christian faith and a deep sense of justice, he brings expert insight, personal stories, and powerful interviews to every episode. If you're looking for truth, support, and clarity in the aftermath of an accident, this is your place. This is Crashes, Claims, and Clarity.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Crashes, Claims, and Clarity. I am your host, Darrell Burrow. I'm an attorney here in the state of Georgia. Our headquarters are here in Duluth, Georgia, about 15 miles north of the city in Gwinnett County. And thank you very much for joining us today. I am excited today to be joined by the owners of Align for Life Wellness Clinic right here in Atlanta. I'm joined by Dr. Joseph Fowler Jr. and Dr. Brandon K. Williams. These gentlemen started their practice many years ago that they will tell you about, and they focus on all sorts of injuries and recovery from those injuries for folks. Could be from an automobile accident, a sports-related, and even dealing with chronic pain. And they have an emphasis on trying to wean people off of prescription medication for pain management. And so they're doing great work here in Atlanta. Gentlemen, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Good morning, and thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. Now, I guess each one of you can start, but tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, how you got started, schooling. We're excited to hear that.
Okay. All right, I'll start first. So again, I'm Dr. Brandon K. Williams. I originally hail from Columbia, South Carolina, just next door to Georgia, so I always say we're neighbors. I've been here in the Atlanta area for about 15 years, came here to attend Life University College of Chiropractic, graduated in 2014 and never left. My background academically, I was pre-med in college, attended College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina. My senior year, just to give you a short backstory, my senior year of college, I injured my back. And of course, as anyone would do, I kind of went the traditional medical route and realized that the care that I was receiving was not in alignment, if you will, no pun intended, with my thought process of what true health care is. So at the time, a friend of mine introduced me to a chiropractor. I knew absolutely nothing about chiropractic. I was reluctant at first, but finally, after I'd exhausted all other options, I decided to see what this chiropractor was all about. And long story short, short story long, after my first adjustment, my life was forever changed. So much so that I was so intrigued about what he did to my body and the instantaneous relief and response that I had from the treatment that I decided to kind of research chiropractic, get a true sense of what it is. And that led me to wanting to then become a chiropractor. So at that point, I packed everything up. Me and my wife, we moved to Atlanta for me to attend chiropractic school, and it's been uphill ever since.
That's great. Yeah, great story. Dr. Fowler.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I am homegrown. I am originally from Atlanta. And so I guess a lot of people say we're one of the few that's still here because everybody seems to be from somewhere else when it comes to Atlanta. But yeah, so I did not start in the medical field. My background is math and electrical engineering. So I have done work at General Motors. I've done work at GT Labs as an electrical engineer. And so what brought me to chiropractic, first of all, my family was introduced to chiropractic many, many years ago when I have a cousin that became a chiropractor. And when he went through our version of residency, my father suffered a heart attack. And so my cousin started co-managing my father with his cardiologist. And so my father has since passed, but I give chiropractic was giving me an extra 10 years with my dad because I could see the changes that was happening to my father after my cousin would get through adjusting him and all that. And so, again, when I graduated math and electrical engineering, I knew at one point I was going to go back at some point to grad school. Didn't know what. So when it finally came time and I decided to go to grad school, I was like, well, what can I do to be closer to sports? Football specifically, because I love football. I played it. I played football, baseball, and all that. But it was just chiropractic just rung in my head. And so went to chiropractic school, went to Life University. That's where I met my brother here as well. And so going into chiropractic school, I was going in for sports chiropractic. But once I got there, I realized that everybody needs it. And so that is really the long and short of it. Again, I attended Frederick Douglass High School here in Atlanta and have been loving our career. We both graduated in 2014 from Life University. And again, just love pouring into people. We know that it's God working through us, and we are humble that God has chose us as his vessels to heal his people in this way.
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic story. Well, let's kind of jump right in. So a patient comes to see both of you, first visit. Tell me what the first priorities are. What are we doing?
All right, so when that patient comes in, of course, we're going to greet them because obviously they've experienced a traumatic event, right? And there's a lot of things that come with that, your life being uprooted from, your vehicle being disabled, your bodily injuries, that kind of thing. So first and foremost, when they come through that door, we want to assure them that one, they're in good hands, they're at the right place. We're going to embrace them, help them through the intake process. And then at that point, once we get them, all the initial steps that we do, we're going to get them back. We're going to do a comprehensive consultation examination. It's a conversation, right? We want them to be at ease, that kind of thing. So we're having that conversation with them on, what occurred during the accident. We're looking at any, photos or video or anything that they have. And we're doing a full workover, right? So we're checking, making sure that the vitals are where they need to be. We're taking a full complement of x-rays based on the symptoms that they have. Because first and foremost, we want to make sure that there are no broken bones or dislocations or anything like that, may have been missed if they were the urgent care ER, or if we are their first healthcare provider, that we want to make sure that we're checking those boxes to make sure that there's no fractured or broken bones. Again, we're doing the necessary complement of orthopedic and neurological tests. We're getting information about the accident, what occurred, that sort of thing. And then we are on that day one, we're introducing them to therapy because obviously they're coming in and they're in some sort of pain. So we are introducing them to a complement of physiotherapies, which may include electrical muscle stimulation, hot or cold therapy, therapeutic ultrasound, if they're dealing with a lot of soft tissue inflammation, swelling, that kind of thing. We're going over home care instructions, right? Proper sleeping positions, being that you're injured. We're going over, ergonomics, if you're at your workstation at work and you're having some discomfort, how should you set up your chair, your office at work, your monitor, keyboard, that kind of thing. Therapies that you can do at home, hot, cold therapy. We issue TENS units and things of that nature that they can utilize at home. So we're going over all of that on that first visit, and we're making the necessary referrals that need to be made if we need to refer out for any type of advanced imaging like CT scans, ultrasounds, MRIs, if we need to make referrals to other providers, orthopedists, neurologists, psychotherapists, because that is another aspect of these types of injuries is the psychological component.
Right.
Many are suffering with nightmares, PTSD, trauma, can't get in a vehicle, let alone drive one. Right. So we're addressing all of those things as we triage that patient on that first visit. I thought
you represent everything. I think one of the big things is that we are a welcoming office. Doc and I have been doing this long enough now. We've been in many different offices across the city. A lot of offices are just not welcoming, regardless of how the patient comes to the office, whether it be a illness patient or, in this case, what we're talking about, PI. And so a lot of people are anxious when they enter an office. One, especially if it's an office that they've never been to before, they don't know the doctors, don't know the front desk people, don't know anybody. And so you are, not only are you anxious, but you're in pain. And so we present and we go overboard to make sure that we present a welcoming environment to dispel not only the anxiety, But also at that point, we start dispelling any myths or understandings or mismyths, if you will, about what chiropractic really is, because all doctors are not created equal, whether we're talking about an MD or in this case, we're talking about chiros, DCs. And so we make sure that people know that our office is different, but it's different in a good way. And that's why we always tell people, welcome home when they come in the door. As soon as they come in the door,
Yeah.
welcome home.
Okay. And you're giving them a lot of education too, it sounds like, so they fully
Yes, absolutely.
informed
Yes.
of.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, let me ask
And
you this.
yeah.
Go ahead, Dr. Williams.
No, I was going to say the education piece is very important because, for some, when they have these types of traumatic injuries, they don't necessarily think of chiropractic as being a part of that solution, if you will. So we are educating people on exactly what chiropractic is, what it does, how it helps the body when you are dealing with these traumatic injuries. So that's one of the things, the initial conversations that we're having day one with our patients.
And what I like about it, and just right quick, as far as the education piece, one of the things that we do, we actually go over the x-rays with the patient. A lot of patients have mentioned to us that they've never had a doctor to go over their x-rays with them. They'll tell them they've had an x-ray, yes. The doctor come in and may say it's good. Even if it's bad, they'll tell them it's bad. But as far as actually looking at your body, that is, in our mind, makes a difference, because we can show you a random x-ray to explain to you what's going on with your body. But when you're looking at your body, you're all in, because that's your body. And we feel like that gives not only you, but us the best chance of getting you, the patient, as close to 100% healthy as possible.
I thought about this. A person comes in, yes, they're in pain, they're presenting, but what is the explanation or explanations that we hear so many times, so often? I'm sure y'all hear it probably every day, and that is, well, I didn't feel any pain at the moment that this wreck or this injury occurred, but here I am, how many ever days or whatever time frame. Can y'all touch on that?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we always tell people, and this is what I always like to tell people, your your vehicle sustained mechanical damage, right? The metal got bent, warped up, twisted, whatever you want to, however you want to describe it. Your body is no different. And because you have this mechanical issue now, chances are that mechanical issue is going to require a mechanical fix. And that's where the
Okay.
chiropractic piece aspect comes in. But we always tell people, after you have that accident, your adrenaline levels are sky high. And at that point, adrenaline will mask pain. So some things you may feel right away. And because of the heightened adrenaline, some of your injuries you may not necessarily know are there initially. So we always say, regardless of the magnitude of the accident, whether it's a fender bender or your vehicle is total, you want to get checked out. You want to get that initial triage, because you never know what's going on underneath the skin. There may be some internal bleeding. There may be, sprains, strains, broken bones that you may not feel just because your adrenaline level is through the roof.
Okay.
So that initial triage, that initial examination is always important, no matter what you're feeling, whether you feel fine or not. But you also too want to make sure that you're being aware of any symptoms that you may be displaying that are out of ordinary for you. Maybe you have a headache. Maybe you have changes in your vision. Your vision is blurred, or maybe you have some nausea or vomiting or diarrhea, or you've got, you're black and blue. All of those are signs of trauma. And those are things that you want to make note of, even if you're not feeling pain. If you're seeing something, or even if not, you definitely want to get checked out.
If it's an injury result of an automobile accident, you mentioned a few things, but are there always a certain pattern of symptoms that you guys see?
Yes. So just going back to the education piece, one of the things that we educate people on, or remind them actually, is that the way that cars are made now, they're made to absorb the impact, right?
That's right.
But again, going back to the education piece, one of the laws of physics is energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's simply transformed or transferred. And so that impact, the sound, is energy, right? It creates heat and all that. So that has to go somewhere. And so if the car is absorbing it, or if it's made to where it is to protect you. The energy again has to go somewhere. It's going into you. So some of the injuries, the typical injuries that we see are neck whiplash, right? Low back pain, deep mid back pain. We've seen sprained ankles from people putting their foot on the brake and they see the accident happening and their foot happening to be on the brake and it sprains their ankle at that point or jam their knee. So typical again, headache, neck pain, incontinence. Some people don't think about incontinence when it comes to accidents, but when an accident occurs, what's happening is your nervous system is being impacted, is being interfered with. The central nervous system, which consists of the brain and spinal cord, runs your entire body. When that system is interfered with, it is not able to communicate properly. So, for example, if we're out playing ball or something, right? Someone throws the ball to you. Your nervous system is communicating. It tells you when to put your hand up to catch the ball. But however, if that interference of the nervous system being interfered with, you may still throw your hand up, but it may be when the ball is past you because the communication is slower at that point. And so again, this is all encompassed in what could be an accident that you think is not so much, but yeah, it's actually deep in that. Kind of similar to an iceberg. 10% of an iceberg is above the water. That 90% below the water is actually what sunk the Titanic.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just a couple more, concussion, traumatic brain injury is a big one now that, I think in years past, they didn't get quite as much attention when you're thinking about car accidents. When we think about concussion, we always think about football, two helmets colliding. But, we're realizing now that, these concussions and traumatic brain injuries can happen in a rear end collision, can happen in a T-bone collision, or any type of collision, involving a vehicle. So we're making sure that, we're diagnosing a lot more TBIs and concussions now. We're making sure that, the patient is getting the necessary workup to make sure that we're ruling that out. And another injury a lot of people don't realize is shoulder injuries from the seatbelt. So we're seeing a lot of rotator cuff injuries and things of that nature because, as Dr. Fowler just mentioned about physics, when you're strapped in, when that vehicle senses the collision, that seatbelt is locking you in to keep you safe. But again, those forces have to go somewhere. So your, vehicle, the forces due to the impact are going one direction, your body is going another. And then because of that, we're seeing a lot of shoulder injuries. We're seeing abdominal injuries, abdominal contusions, again, from the lap seatbelt. So those are some of the common injuries that we see when it comes to car accidents.
And a lot of times, what people don't realize, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, go ahead, Dr. Fowler.
What I was going to say is what a lot of people don't realize too is that oftentimes you're already dealing with something before the accident even happens. And the accident just kind of exacerbates that, right? So you got a lot of people that's dealing with PTSD. PTSD, a lot of people think about that. They think about maybe you've been in the military or something, or as Doc said, we're dealing with the football, impact sport. But PTSD can be caused by many, many, many different things. And so you're already dealing with stuff a lot of times before you have the accident. And so this just exacerbates. And so dealing with, again, we refer people out for PTSD all the time.
Okay, and I was going to add, that was going to be my question. When you see signs of traumatic brain injury or those stressors you were just talking about, what do y'all do as far as referrals are concerned?
So every patient that we have come in, every new patient, as far as their initial paperwork, we're doing concussion questionnaire, SCAT-5 concussion questionnaire. And that just kind of gives us a general kind of baseline outside of our objective assessment. Okay, how are you feeling? What are you going through? Are you having nightmares? Are you having headaches? Are you having visual changes or disturbance? Are you anxious? Whether you're riding in a vehicle or attempting to drive a vehicle, are you reliving, having flashbacks about the car accident, that kind of thing. And then based on that and in conjunction with our objective assessment, we'll make a determination. Does this patient need further evaluation? And at that point, we're referring out, and we have several great providers here in the Atlanta area that we work with. We're referring out for that concussion evaluation, which may include a brain scan, an MRI scan, which is typically the gold standard. CT is good to kind of help rule out any initial brain injury, internal hemorrhage, bleeding, or anything like that. But when we really want to get down into that more advanced look into the brain, we want to order that MRI, and that'll let us know if there is an actual traumatic brain injury that we need to address. So we're bringing the neurology team in early on so that we can get those issues addressed.
Right, and not just neurologists, but orthos. We have dentists in our repertoire, psychiatrists, psychologists. One thing I want to just make mention is that as chiropractors, we are considered portal of entry doctors, all right? Just like an MD, all right? So what that really means is that you don't really need a referral to come to us. You can come straight in off the streets, right? But also what that means as being a portal of entry doctor is if someone comes into the office that is suffering with some symptoms that is not within our wheelhouse to handle, we should have the wherewithal, and we do, to refer them out to other doctors, other disciplines.
Makes sense. Dr. Williams, I have in my notes that you might be either just completed some advanced certifications or pursuing advanced certifications in extremity care, sports and strength and conditioning. Tell me about that.
Yes, so as Dr. Fowler mentioned early on, we both have had interest in sports chiropractic. I'm not an athlete myself, but I had several sisters that were athletes. I had one that was a swimmer, one that ran track. So I've always been around sports, and I did play sports in grade school myself. So I always had an affinity for sports, working with athletes, because I have such an infatuation with how the human body not just works, but moves, right? So that's kind of where some of the affinity to sports has come in. I've had the opportunity to work with Olympic track and field athletes for some of the Olympic Games, and I've worked with all sorts of different sports, from football to baseball, soccer, basketball, track, swim, volleyball. It runs the gamut, but a lot of that, not merely the affinity to sports, but that just gives you further insight into the biomechanics of how the body moves. So I can apply that same knowledge to the everyday person that comes into our office, whether they're dealing with chronic injuries, whether they've been in a car accident, they've had a slip and fall, because we all, 99% of our bodies are the same, right? No matter who we are, no matter what our physical makeup is, no matter what our background is. So all of that just allows us to be able to, me and myself and Dr. Fowler, to better be able to do our jobs and better serve our patients.
Okay. I talked in the beginning about y'all having a focus on reducing people's reliance on prescription medication for pain or pain management if it's long-term and ongoing. Tell me a little bit about y'all's efforts in connection with that.
Well, one thing that we know is that our God put in us what we need to heal. We just have to create that environment from within to do that. As I said earlier, the nervous system, the central nervous system, which can again consist of the brain and spinal cord, runs your entire body. So everything starts there. The first system to develop after conception. So after mom and dad gets through playing and that baby is conceived, the very first system to develop is the central nervous system, again, which consists of the brain and spinal cord. And so again, making that internal environment where it needs to be to heal is the basis of what we do. And so that's part of our teaching too. We know that we are in a society where we are taught that we should rely on drugs. You know, we should rely on everything except for what God has put on the earth and in the earth and in us to heal. And so what we do again is, again, just go back to the education piece where we're actually showing. And then another thing, not only the education, but the performance of what we do, because when we go and actually people allow us to adjust them, to do the stretching and anything else we do, as Doc mentioned earlier about the physiotherapy and all that, they start to see to themselves that they don't need the drugs.
Okay.
And or if they need them less and less. And so our goal is to always get you to feel better actually than you were before the accident when you come into our office. So again, just making sure that they understand that the drugs are just masking the symptoms or masking the problem, not actually fixing it in most cases.
Absolutely. You know, when it comes to chronic use of drugs, you know, our bodies are not necessarily designed to be on a complement of pharmaceutical drugs over an extended period of time, decades and so on. So we want to do what we can, as Dr. Fowler mentioned, to create the optimal internal environment, because at this point it's about function, right? It's about how our bodies are functioning. So chiropractic one of the things I love about chiropractic, because the focus is on optimal function and performance. Not to say that, there may not be a time in our lives where we, won't need the drugs.
Right.
But the hope is that if that is the need, that is not a perpetual need, or it's not something that you're going to have to be on high dosages or multiple drugs for the rest of your life.
For long term.
Exactly.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
Definitely want to make sure people understand we're not bashing the drugs.
Right.
Because if I walk out of this building right now that we're in and I break my leg, don't take me into my office talking about adjusting me. You take me to the nearest hospital, let them put all the happy drugs in me that I can get.
So there's certainly a place for them where they've got to be used.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, what is just a few things that myself or anybody watching, what 1, 2, 3 things should we be doing at home or doing better at home that are going to help us physically and mentally?
One of the things that I always like to say, we both say, is typically how you go into a situation is usually an indicator of how you come out of that situation. Okay. Whether we're talking about any type of diagnoses that you receive, a car accident, as we're having this discussion today, how we go into that situation is usually a predictor of how we come out of it. So that is where taking care of yourself, being in good health and fitness come into play. We have 4 principles that we operate by in our office. First and foremost is proper chiropractic care. All right. It's going to make sure that your nervous system is functioning properly as it should. And if that nervous system is functioning properly, chances are that those other systems that feed off of that nervous system are also functioning optimally. Proper rest. You want to make sure that you're getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night, because when our bodies are at rest, that means our brain is able to be in a dormant state and our bodies are able to heal, repair, and rejuvenate, which is crucial to our overall longevity and health. Proper exercise. You want to make sure that you're exercising at least 3 to 4 days per week so that we're keeping our heart healthy, keeping our musculoskeletal system moving, and just keeping everything in good balance. And proper nutrition. You want to make sure that you're eating healthy, eating a healthy, balanced diet, eat, as we say, moderation and moderation. So all the stuff that we know that is bad for us and not so good for us, that we're consuming those foods and things sparingly and not making that a part of our daily food intake. So those are the 4 pillars that we operate by. And generally speaking, if you keep those principles, you keep those 4 principles in check, then you're at a good functional level optimally, so that, God forbid, when these life challenges do occur, like the car accidents or the sports injuries or whatever ailment may occur, that your body is in a good position to be able to fight and deal with that issue.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yes.
Well, gentlemen, tell me about Aligned for Life Wellness. Where can folks find you? Socials. Give me all that information.
Yeah, so we are located near downtown Atlanta in the Lakewood Heights community. Again, I am Dr. Joseph Fowler Jr., my business partner, Dr. Brandon K. Williams. We are co-founders of Align for Life. We do have late hours. All right, we're open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on several days during the week. Also, we offer transportation for our accident victims who may not have a good way of getting to their treatments, because what we realize is that oftentimes a lot of people, that when they have an accident, that's their only means of transportation. And so if you're not able to be compliant, you actually mess the case up. So that's why we provide transportation. Now, our youngest patient to date, 2 days old, oldest patient, 99. And so again, we have been blessed to take care of a wide range of people. You can definitely give us a call at 404-383-1110. Or the quick way, as far as the web is concerned, is yourfinespine.com. That's yourfinespine.com. Yourfinespine.com.
And you can also find us on socials, all the social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or formerly Twitter. Aligned for Life, ALIGNED, the number 4, Life, LIFE.
All right. Gentlemen, it's been extremely informative today. I congratulate you on all of your success and hope that continues for many years into the future. I thank you so much for what you're doing for the community and the people that you touch and the people that you serve. It's been a real blessing to have you on today.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. And
Thank
again,
you.
we appreciate the opportunity for having us on today.
Yes, and like we always say, auto accident, wellness care, slip and fall. We take care of it all.
Thank you so much, both.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Crashes, Claims, and Clarity with attorney Darrell Burrow, founder of Burrow & Associates and a trusted advocate for over 30 years. If today's episode helped bring clarity or hope after an accident, be sure to follow, subscribe, and leave a review. To connect with Darrell or learn more, visit legalatlanta.com. Join us next week for another honest, faith-centered conversation about recovery, rights, and moving forward after injury.